So, my Heidegger influenced phenomenalism. You might say that both Heidegger and phenomenalism are a little bit changed by this fusion, or the way that I understand them to hang together. You might say that the main idea, it's related to Walt Whitman as a poet. It's about the reality of experience. I mean, but the reality of experience. Wittgenstein wrote that experience is world and does not need the subject. So, you might say that the formal subject is consciousness understood as the presence of that world, right? So a really blunt or demystified way to put it is to say that consciousness is the presence of the physical. But I'm a radical pluralist. So consciousness is the presence of anything and everything. It's the from a point of view or situated present scene, active streaming present scene of the world from a point of view. So Heidegger in Being and Time, he says the meaning of being is temporality. Temporality means, primal time, existential time, not clock time, not physics time. So presence here is dynamic presence. And experience is also transcendence in the phenomenological sense. Experience is the revelation or the uncovering of world. Now there are metaphors you can use here, like consciousness as the light that illuminates the visible. And these are somewhat helpful, but the problem is you can make light. This analogy can make you substantialize or intify, reify consciousness, which is to reify being. So I think we want it to be radically simple, like so simple that it's uncanny. So Wittgenstein talked about how, to understand logic, you have to understand that something is. Something is. But he saw that he was tempted to utter a tautology, right? Because being or presence is so fundamental. It's so easy to say too much, just to point at the ontological difference is a weird thing, because you have to use a metaphor like presence. He used all kinds of metaphors, aletheia, logos, phusis, or nature, but nature in the Heraclitean sense. The significant life world in his early work. Consciousness would be the being or the presence of this streaming significant life world. Now, Dasein is something like the entanglement of subject and object. So you might say that consciousness is the presence of this entangled subject-object clump. We sort of are what we are doing. If I'm driving a car, I'm the entire scene of driving. Yes, my hands are in the visual field, but my consciousness is the whole presence, the presence of that scene on the interstate. And then my flesh and blood self is just one more object in the world, though I am, of course, my consciousness is entangled or causally related. Like what is visible is what is in front of my flesh and blood eyes. So actually, before I started reading Heidegger as a phenomenalist, I had to understand phenomenalism properly. So I think if you read about phenomenalism, a lot of people think it's just this epistemological claim, so I could emphasize, ontological phenomenalism. But, I think this is what J.S. Mill was saying. But anyway, it was Mach. I just happened to be studying Mach's The Analysis of Sensations when, you might say that it really hit me. It really hit me how this could work and how it was actually, in my view, a much stronger theory. It has this economy, simplicity, and beauty. And if you read Mach, I feel like he dissolves the boundary between subject and object. So you might say that Mach can help you understand Dasein. But Mach is, his style, he's like a physicist, philosopher, so it's a very different style than you get from Heidegger. Now, I think they're both great writers, but, I think for people who might be put off by some of the later Heidegger's style, would find Mach's approach very digestible. And I also think Mach's personality is just, it shines through. He throws in these little remarks. You see this very likable, very self-honest person who's really trying to make sense and obtain some clarity on a tricky issue. And in the analysis of sensations, he mentions that he read Kant as a teenager, but he was always bothered by the thing in itself. So, he's always very humble. He's like, well, I'm not a philosopher, I'm just a physicist. But I think he's a great philosopher with a sense of humor. So I found this philosophical chapter in some anthology of European philosophers. It was near the end of the book, and I read it, and I was like, this is amazing. How, why have I not heard of this? I had read William James's essay, Does Consciousness Exist? So I was sort of set up to be open-minded to phenomenalism. I don't think Mach even calls it phenomenalism. Lenin, he critiqued Mach and Avenarius, and empirio-criticism was the name that was more common. But, it's the same escape from dualism, and you might say unification of the phenomenal stream. And Bluin, he wrote this essay on Husserl, and he reads Husserl as an ontological phenomenalist. So there are different names for it, but these names are just labels. They're just pointers. There's a sort of seeing or realization. It's not mystical. It's a conceptual leap out of dualism. And then you sort of follow the consequences. You have to, there's like little points that you have to make sense of. Now, one of those points is truth is correspondence. That doesn't work. That's kind of what has trapped people in dualism. If you think about truth as, meaning stuff that mirrors substrate stuff, you've kind of already presupposed dualism. So that's why I think Heidegger talks about Protagoras, and he critiques Husserl, and he mentions relativism. He says anxiety in the face of relativism is anxiety in the face of philosophy. I think he also says it's anxiety in the face of history or time, right? This lust for not only eternal truth, but this lust for a method that gives you the certain possession of eternal truth, right? And this would be connected to the fear of death. And the fear of relativism could be understood as the fear of the risk of taking a stand, of believing without certainty or without proof, right? You don't get to outsource, escape, you don't claim the authority of truth with a capital T. So this fits in well with the spirit of empiricism.